Take a look at this position. It's white to move. Our goal is to stop the black pawn from queening. Can we do it? Remember what the critical squares are, right? If the black king can get to any of these three squares, he's winning. He's getting a queen. So our mission with white is to prevent black from getting into those squares. How do we do it? Try to take a look at this. Give it your best guess. Where should the white king go? I will tell you the answer in a bit. But first, let's remember what opposition is. You remember that when we grab the opposition, we are in effect opposing the other side and preventing them from advancing. Here, it's black to move, and black cannot advance because white has the opposition. And that becomes even more powerful when you have pieces on the board. You can see how this works. Because white has opposition, black will have no chance of saving his pawn. Black can move towards his pawn, but white maintains the opposition, and black is cut off from his pawn, and white can take his and win the game. So what about this? Now this is something we haven't seen yet. Here the kings are far apart. We have something called distant opposition. We can take the opposition against the black king from far away. How do we do that? Well, it's pretty easy. When your kings are on the same file, or the same rank, then all you need to do is place your king on the same color of square as your opponent's. So in this case, white can take opposition by moving to d3. Same color of square as the opponent's king. White moves to d3, and now white has the opposition. We'll prove it. Watch. If black were to step up, white steps up, has full opposition. You can see. And in this case, let's look at this. It's the same thing. For white to get opposition against the black king, what he needs to do is, remember, on the same rank, same file, he needs to get his king on the same color of square as black. So b2. White moves to b2, and now white has opposition on black, distant opposition. And we'll see how this works. If black moves up, you see, boom, white has opposition. And it also works, doesn't matter which orientation of the board you have, whether it's up and down, right to left, files and ranks, it's the same thing. White here can take opposition against the black king by moving to g5. Same color of square, and now you see how this works. This is distant opposition. Well, what if black says, hey, I'm not just going to move, straight up the board. Well, let's see what happens if black tries to run. Here, white takes distant opposition. And black may move sidestep. But look, white can keep the opposition. Remember, he moves to the same color of square on the same file. And now, no matter where black moves, look, if black moves to b6, white moves to b4, opposition. Black moves to c6, c4, and d6, white moves to d4. So no matter where black goes, white will keep the opposition. Black can go sideways, and white simply maintains the opposition going sideways. And let's say black does it again. For white to keep the opposition, he's got to go to e3. What happens if white goes to e4? Oops. This was a mistake. White has now lost the opposition. Notice the squares are different colors, and now black easily takes the opposition. You see that? Pretty easy once you get the hang of it. Now let's go back. You remember we had that position at the very beginning. Let's go back to this. Remember that it's our move. We're white. We want to stop that black pawn from queening. We know what the critical squares are. We need to stop the black king from getting into those critical squares. What's the right move? Well, now you know what distant opposition is. We need to oppose the black king to prevent him from getting in those squares. Move to c4 is a terrible mistake. This is a blunder. In fact, if you were to make this move, you would throw the game away. Now, instead of this being a draw, black is now winning the game. And for most of us, c4 seems like a natural move, doesn't it? Right? I mean, look at this. We want to stop black. Our first instinct is, hey, let's push our king up. Push our king up. And that's what most of us might do. But this is a losing move, because what does black do? Now black gets the opposition. Look at this. Now white may sidestep, and black takes the opposition again. White has to move out of the way. Whether white goes to c4 or e4, black's getting into a critical square. Look, white goes to e4, and black jumps in. The game is over. White just threw the game away. So let's go back. In this move, the correct move for white is c3, because now white has opposition on the black king. If the black king steps forward towards the critical squares, white steps forward. See? Black can't get in there. You see how this works? It's quite amazing when you think about it. Chess is a game of unlimited beauty. And so here, the white king opposes the black king. Black will never be able to get a queen. Black can try something else. He pushes his pawn, but remember, when they push their pawn, when your pawn goes up, the critical squares go up, and now it's even worse for black. There's really nothing black can do. If he tries to get out of the way here, well, white has a couple moves he could do, but the easiest is just maintain opposition. White keeps the opposition on black. This is distant opposition, and black can never get a queen. Black moves up, and here it would be a terrible blunder to go to c4, because if white goes to c4 here, then black gets the opposition. So white is smarter than that, right? We're smarter than that. We wouldn't go to c4 in this position. We go to b4. We oppose the black king. There's nothing he can do. So black may sidestep, and we keep the opposition. He can't push his pawn. That pushes down the critical squares. We keep opposition. No queen. Stalemate. So now let's look at this position. How do we have opposition when the kings are not lined up? Well, we have something else called rectangular opposition. And I'm just going to go over this very briefly. Rectangular opposition. We can oppose another king rectangularly. And the way we do that is we draw a square or a rectangle around the kings. See, draw a nice little square and put the kings on the opposite corners. Put both kings on the opposite corners of a square. And to have opposition, your king has to be on the same color of square as your opponent. So in this case, if it's black to move, then white has opposition because white's king is on the same color of square as black. And we can see how this works. Watch this. So white, here it'll be white to move. White jumps in to the square, the same corner, the corner square, same color as black. We draw a square around the kings. White has opposition. Black may move forward, and white, now look at the corner of the squares. Where does white go? Draw a new square in your mind. Just picture it. Picture a square with the black king on a corner and the white king on a corner. Where would that be? Yes, E3. See, the squares are the same color. Now we have opposition. White has opposition. It doesn't matter where black goes from here. Opposition. See how that works. And so let's look at this example. Very easy. Where does the white king go to oppose the black king? So right here, white wants distant opposition. Where should white go? Well, let's draw a square around the kings. And look at this. If white goes to e4, then he will not have opposition because the corners are not the same color. Do you see a better square for the white king? Yes, d3. Look at this. So for white to have opposition here, distant opposition, or rectangular opposition as we call it, white goes to d3, and now white has opposition. Black king, no matter what he does, white can keep the opposition just like that. So let's have a little bit of review and see if you remember. Black makes a move c7. Now white wants to get distant opposition. Where does white go? Does he go c4? No, c3. c3 gains the distant opposition on black. Remember, they're on the same file, same color squares, and now white can maintain opposition. And we need to point out one more thing about distant and rectangular opposition as a difference between that and direct opposition. Direct opposition is the one that we're most familiar with. That's where you're one space away. There's one space in between you and your opponent's king. You take direct opposition. That's almost always a good thing. Having that in a game is usually good. Now, distant opposition is a little different. It doesn't mean that it's always the right thing to do. Look at this example. I'll just make this really easy and clear. In this example here, black is trying to promote his pawn to queen, and we need to stop it. And so we can look and say, well, let's take opposition against the black king. This square here, E3, is rectangular opposition. We put our king there, right? 4 corners. We go to E3. We have rectangular opposition. But is that the right move? Actually, it's not. That would be a losing move. Our goal here is not just opposition. Our goal is to stop the king from getting into the critical squares. So just because you can have distant opposition doesn't always mean it's the right move to make. In this case, let's say that we did go to E3 and get opposition against the black king. Okay, so we have rectangular opposition, but this is going to lose because now black can jump to B6, and there's no way we can stop the black king from getting into the critical squares. We can try to cut him off, but now all he does is goes to B5, and now what are we going to do? How do we stop black from getting into the critical square? Our only move here is C3, but here black takes the opposition on us. And now there's nothing we can do. Black wins. So go back here and let's look again. In this case, gaining rectangular opposition was not the best move. Going to D3 is the best move. And why is that the best move? Because now we can prevent black from getting into the critical squares. Black will try to jump in, but we can block it. When we go to C4, black's pawn, notice black's pawn on C6, is blocking black from getting opposition on us. So even though we don't have opposition in this position, it's black to move, we don't have opposition, we're still going to draw this game because black cannot oppose us. We have prevented black from opposing us. So just be careful when you're playing a game of chess. It's good to know distant and rectangular opposition, but remember that it's not always correct move just to get opposition. You got to look at all the pieces and come up with a plan and a goal and know what you're doing on the chessboard. Good luck with your chess.